can't stay in my fit. What I'm gonna do if I really want to? But you know, baby, break my mind into. But you have the key, so open my heart, please, my heart, please. Tell me that I'm beautiful till counterparts. When our lights so high, I'm all what you got. I'm all what you got.
So I'm really pleased to have Jurgen Güldner. Have I?
Yeah, that's pretty close.
It's not bad. Yeah. Okay. Great. General Program Manager of Hydrogen Technologies for BMW in the back of an electric car.
Yes.
We were hoping to be in a hydrogen, but the hydrogen car is quite busy today with other jobs. But we're here to talk about hydrogen. And
this is a beautiful car anyway, right?
it is a beautiful car as well. It's very beautiful. I don't personally actually own a car living in Berlin because I can get around without one.
Yeah.
But from time to time, I do need a car. So I rent one. But Jurgen, hydrogen, I mean, has been talked about for many, many, many years. There's always been moments, I remember, in the last, say, 15, 20 years where hydrogen popped up and then it sort of popped down again. But do you think we're actually seeing a kind of renaissance of the momentum to actually go for hydrogen land transport?
Yes, I actually think so, because there has been a very steady growth of a hydrogen economy over the last, let's say, 4 years. It all started with the report that the International Energy Agency wrote for the G20 summit in Japan in 2019. And there the role of hydrogen as part of the energy transition was described. And since then there has been a growing number of projects for hydrogen, hydrogen production, hydrogen distribution, and hydrogen application, hydrogen usage in all kinds of fields. And I think this was the kind of the tipping point. And since then, we see a lot of projects coming up. Of course, those large-scale projects take a while to really, become into life and start actually producing hydrogen, for example. But that definitely was the starting point.
And tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, are you an engineer? Are you a scientist? What's your background?
I'm actually an electrical engineer.
Electrical engineer,
Yeah.
okay. Because the BMW hydrogen vehicles have a fuel cell, yeah? That,
Yes, they're fuel cell vehicles.
Splits something into hydrogen and something
No, it's actually the other way around.
Okay.
Yeah, we have, first off, a hydrogen vehicle is an electric car.
Yeah.
It's driven by actually the same electric motors that our electric vehicles use as well.
Okay.
The energy in the car is stored as hydrogen and not as electricity. Like here in this car, we have the energy in the battery. In a hydrogen car, the energy is stored as hydrogen in hydrogen tanks. They have 700 bar. It's a worldwide standard. That's the nice thing. We can fuel up our vehicles of the pilot fleet everywhere in the world with the same nozzle. And this hydrogen in the tank then meets with oxygen in the fuel cell. The oxygen comes in from the outside air. We have a compressor that pulls in air, and there a chemical reaction happens in a controlled manner. And hydrogen plus oxygen makes energy, releases energy, and makes water.
Yeah, H2O.
And
Yeah.
H2O,
There we
right?
go.
And that goes out with the remaining air as water vapor. And that's the beauty of it, because you don't have any local emissions, because the only exhaust, so to speak, is water vapor.
That's interesting. So basically, it's an electric car powered by hydrogen rather than by electrons from a battery.
Correct.
And so does it mean that if I was buying a hydrogen car in the future, if I could afford it, but if I wanted to, that I would be pretty much, it's the same structure under the, I know there's differences, but it's basically the same drivetrain, and are there differences in it, I know there are some differences like the fuel cell,
Right.
but if it's still a kind of electric car, it means a company like BMW is not having to make a completely different vehicle.
Exactly. We see battery electric cars and hydrogen fuel cell electric cars as a complementary to each other, and we would like to put them on the same architecture, and then we're flexible in production as well, and either make a battery electric car or a fuel cell electric car out of it. And the beauty of it is the car drives like any other electric car, the great acceleration that we now have gotten used to with electric cars, the silent ride, you don't hear anything. It's emission free because, as I said, only water vapor is the exhaust, but a hydrogen car can be refueled like a combustion engine car today.
Yeah, you just go to the tank Stella, to the petrol station, and it's hydrogen, not petrol.
Exactly, and it takes just 3 to 4 minutes to fuel up, and you're 100% full, and you can go again. So you have the combination of the best of both worlds: electric driving capabilities, zero emission, plus the capability to use the car like people have used combustion engine cars for more than 100 years now.
So again, a little bit more about you. Are you from Bavaria, or where are you
from?
Yeah,
I'm actually from Bavaria. Yes.
Okay.
I've been with BMW for more than 25 years now, with different jobs, always kind of with advanced technologies, kind of at the forefront of innovation. And you probably know BMW as a leader in innovation and technology, but we are actually also a leader in sustainability. We have worked decades already on electrification, on battery electric cars, but also on hydrogen in parallel, because we really see the two technologies not as competition, but as complementary technologies.
And where did you study? Where were you? Where did you do your education, your university or whatever?
I started at the Technical University in Munich in electrical engineering, but then I came to the United States actually, have a master's from Clemson University in South Carolina. I can speak Southern if you like.
Oh God, then we've really taken this into a comedy show. I could speak in my northern, Northern England accent, which nobody would understand because it's a bit weird.
But it's difficult for me in New York to speak Southern, I must admit. Then I went back to Germany, got my PhD again at the Technical University in Munich, and then I came back to the States actually. University of California at Berkeley. I did a postdoc there back then at automated driving, and that was almost 30 years ago. And since then, a lot of things have happened in the automotive industry. And after that, I joined BMW, first in the innovation and advanced research department, and had various positions both in chassis and in powertrain.
Wow, my Bachelor of Science degree from the University of St Andrews in Scotland now looks like not really a very great success after hearing all that.
Well, it's just titles, but you learn a lot in those things. And I think what was most important and most valuable was actually the cultural experience, and not so much the technical experience, but meeting a lot of people from different cultures, especially at universities here in the States. You meet people from all over the world, and that really is eye-opening. And I've been a world citizen ever since.
So, getting back then to the hydrogen vehicles, is there a hydrogen-powered BMW you can buy today, or is it
not
coming?
Yet. No, it's not yet. It's coming in 2028. We just announced that we will have our first hydrogen model. We're basically following the same steps that we did with battery electric cars. Right there, we had a pilot fleet of electrical minis back in the days. You might remember that. Now we have a pilot fleet with the hydrogen vehicles, and we just saw one of the cars there. They're all over the world, actually, the whole fleet at the moment. And with that, we decided to go with our first production model in 2028. That is kind of equivalent to our i3 that came out in late 2013 as the first BMW battery electric vehicle. And since then, in the battery electric field, we have rolled out battery electric powertrains in basically all our models. Nowadays, we have the full flexibility. You can get a gasoline car, a diesel car, a plug-in hybrid, or a battery electric powertrain in almost each model line, or all model lines at BMW.
So, I mean, with the electric car, sometimes people, maybe quite wrongly, many so-called developed countries, Europe and the USA, still some people are a little bit cautious because they're worried about, range anxiety, aren't they? Is this electric car just going to stop going because I haven't found a charging point or something? And I know that, again, from the debate had we yesterday, that a lot of people said that's really a bit of a myth, What do you need to do to make the hydrogen car work? You clearly need places where you can fill up with hydrogen,
right.
In Germany, in France, UK, wherever your markets are. Is that infrastructure starting to roll out, or how is that developing?
Yes, it is. Yeah. It has started to roll out. It will be a combination of commercial vehicles and private used cars, because an infrastructure obviously needs offtake. So we see infrastructure in Germany, in France, in other European countries, also here in the US, mainly in California actually. And we think it will come in the next few years for commercial vehicles, for the trucks and lorries, the buses and coaches, light-duty vehicles. There's some manufacturers that offer that. And then the private use cars will be able to tag on to that infrastructure. Because obviously you need the fueling stations that sell hydrogen to be able to use a hydrogen car. In Europe, we have a regulation from the European Union. It's called the Alternative Fuel Infrastructure Regulation, where it actually prescribes that a dual infrastructure, electric charging and hydrogen fueling stations, will be mandatory in all European states until 2030 with a base network, right? To basically cover your travel needs, so to speak. And for us, this dual strategy was, the focus on battery electric cars, but also having hydrogen as an add-on technology is mainly focused on the customer needs, because there are some people who would like to have a zero-emission car, but maybe have trouble using a battery electric car.
Yeah, yes.
Many people love our battery electric cars, don't get me wrong. And
so people in rural areas, for example, maybe.
In rural areas and in cities, because just look around here in New York. It'll be difficult to have electric charging for each and every parking spot here, right? And electric car, it's easiest to use it if you can charge it at home or at work. If you have to go public charging all the time, it can become a little bit tedious if you use the car a lot. Also, people who travel a lot, people who are on the road a lot, they tell us that, even if you get down to like 15-20 minutes charging times, it's still too much. We want something that we are used to, like the combustion engine car, go to gas station 100% full in 3 to 4 minutes and keep going. And for this, customer base or this customer type use case, we're developing the hydrogen as well as an add-on to the battery electric vehicles.
Is there, there has been some debate with the hydrogen story, that particularly with green hydrogen, that some people say the hydrogen should be used for the super hard to abate sectors, like steel and cement, shipping, this kind of thing. Do you fear there could be some tension in the early years about who gets the green hydrogen, because of course we're still growing the renewable energy infrastructure? Is that an issue, a debating point, a question, a political decision? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I think that the whole energy transition can only work if it works in an economical way. So we always have to look at the economics of things. And there, when we look at hydrogen applications and which application kind of can pay what price, the transport sector is actually one of those sectors that can pay a higher price than, for example, the steel industry, just comparing to what you're replacing, right? If you're replacing diesel with hydrogen, you have a different price point, what people are used to, versus steel, where you replace coal or natural gas today. And on the reverse side of things, the steel industry needs much larger quantities of hydrogen versus the transport sector. So having the transport sector kind of as a catalyst to start off the hydrogen economy, with smaller production, maybe more localized production sites that can pay higher prices in the beginning, is actually a good thing to get the whole thing started, because for a steel plant to go to hydrogen, a huge hydrogen production plant, from the very beginning, because there's only you can convert one furnace after another, but you need to start with something big already at a very low price. And usually with a new technology, you start with lower volumes and higher prices. So I think the transport sector can actually help grow the hydrogen economy, which we need for the energy transition as such. And at the end of the day, the amount of hydrogen that's required for the transport sector, and then when you look at the personal private use passenger vehicles, is so small compared to the large volume that I think from an economical point of view, there always will be hydrogen available for the transport sector as well.
Okay, good point. Yeah, it's interesting. I always feel that sometimes when you talk to people about climate change, they all feel very, negative about it, because often these amazing, creative technologies and also processes, are often invisible to the average person, that all these things are going on. And I just interviewed a guy in Britain the other day who has developed a ship. In this case, it's small right now. It's a catamaran that uses the wind to generate hydrogen, to create hydrogen from seawater and store it in tanks. And he's just got investment to go to a 1 megawatt ship.
Okay. Yeah.
Again, it's the wind that's powering the boat. It's going through the water. It's got an algorithm that searches out the highest wind speeds. And his plan is for tens of thousands of these ships making hydrogen from seawater, and then either refueling ships at sea or offloading the hydrogen to ports, and then they all go back out again and collect hydrogen. Who knows? But he has a lot of investors very keen on it, and the UK government's even quite interested. So, there's a lot of creativity going on, that's for sure.
Yeah, we see a lot of projects on production of hydrogen worldwide, especially in areas where renewable energies are abundant. A lot of sun or a lot of wind. In Europe, it's Norway, Scotland, and so on, where they have a lot of wind. Also the Baltic and the North Sea areas, and the south of Europe, the north of Africa, they're all gearing up to produce hydrogen at scale. And also an interesting point, there's more and more hydrogen production coming up from surplus of renewable energies, because renewable energy is available when the wind is blowing or the sun is shining, and not necessarily when we need the energy, right? And there's a lot of situations, and the more we gear up the renewable energies, there'll be more and more times when there's a surplus of renewable energy in the system and the grid is full and no one wants to take the energy, but you can convert it into hydrogen and store it for later. So you have something additional that you can actually sell, right? It helps the business case for a wind farm or a solar farm, that they can sell electricity when the electricity prices are good, and then they sell hydrogen at any time, which they produce when the electricity prices are low. So this duality is also seen in the energy system at large, where they kind of complement each other.
Exactly. Now, that's a very good point. The storage angle is really, really interesting as well.
You will need to store the sun from the summer for the winter somehow, right? And that's not possible with batteries.
So Jurgen, I just want to say thank you very much for this interview. It's been very, very interesting.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
And I learned something too, and I hope the viewers watching this will learn something as well. And
I'm sure.
I think what you're saying in a sense is there's no, silver bullet to all this. There are, a variety of choices, of which hydrogen will be one of them.
Right.
And that's what we need to decarbonize land transport options.
Yeah. I mean, in our decade-long efforts at BMW for sustainability and environmental friendly technologies, we really learned two things. And one is that we need to employ all available technologies and employ the technologies that fit best to the use case. And also what we learned is that you have to look at the whole value chain of things. It's not just enough to have environmentally friendly vehicles, but you have to look at the whole value chain from the beginning of making components, our own production, all the way to the use phase of the car, and also the recycling of the car, which is very important because you have to design the recycling capability into the vehicle and think 20, 30 years in advance, right? And this long-term thinking really has been a part of our DNA, and that's why we develop technologies over many decades and then are ready to employ them or deploy them when the time has come.
Sure, the circular economy.
Right, exactly.
Again, long talked about and hopefully getting there now.
Yeah, but you just have to make it happen.
Yeah, right. You're right, yeah.
wanna stay in my fit. What I'm gonna do if I really want to, but you know, babe.